The Archer class was a small scout ship design serving with Starfleet during the middle of the 23rd century. The ships, little larger than modern runabouts, were built to be quick and difficult to pick up on sensors due to their small size and sensor-absorbent hull paneling. The ships had a crew of 14, of which only the captain and first officer had their own small private cabins. The remaining 12 crew instead sharing 4 small cabins with one bed each, requiring them to hot bunk with one person sleeping at a time, while the others were on duty. The ship was designed to be the smallest possible warp-capable vessel that could be built using technology of the day, which could sustain high speeds for a long time. As such, it measured in at just 45 meters long by 22.5 wide and 9 meters tall. While armed with phasers and photon torpedoes, its armament was far lighter than that which could be found on larger ship classes, and its much smaller reactor meant that it didn't have the power for sustained fire from its phasers, meaning that it had to rely on its torpedoes if it hoped to combat larger ships. In the aftermath of the 4 Years' War between the United Federation of Planets and Klingon Empire, Starfleet began to consider the fact that its traditional designs of Scout, such as the Nelson and its derivative, the Hermes, were too large and vulnerable to be risked in areas contested with the Empire, or as border patrol ships. The type's high losses during the war and the introduction of the destroyer and improvements to the frigate type had all meant the Scout had become largely irrelevant as a type anyways, as both ships largely took over and split the roles of the old Scouts. The Hermes would be produced in comparatively small numbers in the 2250s and was used mainly as a border patrol and courier vessel, being the last conventional scout ship made by Starfleet. But the job of the Scout was far from unneeded. There was still a use for a small, fast, and stealthy ship. And so, Starfleet recycled the name for what was in essence a completely new type of ship, design and development of which would take just a few months, with the first vessels of the type entering service in 2259. The initial Archers were found to be horribly cramped on all but the shortest missions. Lacking even a full shower and galley, the vessel's crews found their quarters almost intolerably unpleasant after just a few weeks. The ship's sensors and engines were also found to be a bit oversized for the tiny space frame, and a major redesign was undertaken. Starfleet's design and development department replaced and rearranged numerous systems between the Batch 1 and Batch 2 ships. The deck space devoted to habitable volume was increased by a third, with cabin space size being increased, a full shower and galley also being added. New, more compact sensor packages were installed, and a purpose-designed, miniaturized matter-antimatter reactor and computer core were developed and installed in record time. The Batch 2 Archer was much more popular with its crews. The ships would be sent on many dangerous missions, both exploring the frontier and also doing much-needed reconnaissance work in Klingon and other territories, missions that would not be officially acknowledged by Starfleet until recently with the end of the Dominion War. Archers served into the 2270s, but the small vessels were forced to be retired after brief service lives due to stresses on their small hulls. Stresses that had been taken into consideration when they were originally built and designed, but judged to be not worth the countering because it was considered that the ships were so small that they could be easily replaced once they were wore out, and replaced they would be by the enlarged and more capable Ranger-class scout ship, the last official class of scout ships to serve with Starfleet. Although their service was brief and their legacy short, the Archer class has captivated generations of daydreaming children across the Federation who would read the ship's exploits and imagine what life would be like aboard such a cramped starship. After their retirement from Starfleet, a number of Archers would be acquired by private organizations for use as couriers, fast transports, and racers. One such ship, the Azure Comet, achieving a speed and endurance record which stood until the early 24th century.